Hello and welcome to How to Paint. Today we're looking at Nemesis the board game by Awaken Realms. This board game is notoriously brutal, but it's really fun, and I've been wanting to paint these guys up for a while. So let's get painting. These intruders are the main enemies of the game, and I really want to do something kind of gross and gnarly with them. I'm starting things off with my typical prime, which is a black all over, and then a white angled from about 45 degrees just on top. I'm doing something a little extra special with these guys, so I'm focusing areas of white on specific parts of the model. And then while I have the airbrush handy, we're starting it off with Cloudburst blue. And you could use a normal paintbrush for this, but this was just a quick and easy way of getting some coverage. And then I'm thinning down some sky blue, and I'm also running that through the airbrush. I'm picking out some of the main areas on the model, like the claws, the head, and the tail. And I'm just focusing those highlights. If you didn't have an airbrush, you could also get a similar effect with a dry brushing. And I'm mixing some white in with that sky blue, and now I'm going in by hand and painting in some highlights. The overall effect that I'm trying to achieve is something similar to the artwork in the game, so it's a lot of heavy shadows and obscured details. There's a couple more areas that I want to call out that I may have missed with the airbrush. So for example, these plates on the chest, I'm just running the brush down the side of these and getting an edge highlight. And then a few dabs on the head just gives me a nice glint highlight. I'm switching over to a pink now. This is a light pink, and I'm using this for the mouth and the mandibles, and then some of those gross, fleshy, sinewy bits on the shoulders and in the claws. And then to shade that, I'm using Carroburg Crimson, and it's just a very quick shade on top. I'm going pretty heavy on the wash, just to highlight some of those details, and making sure I get in the mouth as well. For the teeth, I'm using a Birch, and just carefully highlighting these. And then I'm adding a little bit of variation to the armor, so this is jungle green. I'm using a sponge just to dab this on, and it adds some interest and some nice color tones here. It also helps to give the impression of something organic as well. And then lastly, I mixed some of that green in with some white, and I'm just doing some final highlights. I've gone back in with the original pink, and I'm just adding a quick couple of highlights to this really nasty fleshy bit. I'm taking a coal black here, and I'm using this on the base. I'm just covering up some of these airbrush oversprays, but you could leave it as is. And then I'm going to highlight some of these details on the base with a neutral grey, and I'm just dry brushing these on, just letting the brush pick up on the sculpt. And finally, this is an off-white that I'm just applying here for the brightest areas of the base. I'm not dry brushing all over because I'm still playing with the idea of light and shadow. Lastly, here's some dry rust, and I've watered this right the way down. I'm applying it almost as a wash on the base, and then using a damp brush just to feather that into some of the creases and things. And then lastly, a black rim around the edge. Now you could leave them as is, but I want to take these guys one step further. So to do that, I've already covered them in a matte varnish, ready for the next section. And that helps to lock in the paint that I've already done. I want to add some snot and saliva and blood and viscera and stuff. So to do that, I'm using a polyurethane glue and also some gloss varnish. So first I'm applying the gloss varnish, and this helps to give a slick, wet appearance on some of the areas that I'm looking to apply the glue. It also helps the glue to adhere to the model, and if you make a mistake, it's easier to pull it off of the model as well. And then make sure that the gloss is dried fully before the next section. Okay, I'm starting off by putting the glue on an old plastic bag. And again, this has to be a polyurethane glue. If it's a PVA or something, it's not going to work as well, because this will dry clear. I'm taking a big old glob of this glue and just running it between these two pieces of the model here, letting it just rest into place. And you don't have a lot of working time every time you dab a bit of glue on there. You get about 30 seconds before it starts to dry. So if you notice that it starts to get difficult to work with, just apply a new double glue. And sometimes it helps to use a pin for more of the delicate areas and a paper clip for some of the bigger areas. It will be quite fragile still, and it normally takes about 24 hours to cure. But once it is dry, you can just pull off sections that you didn't like with some tweezers. And it is surprisingly strong still, but you can see the result. And then finally, I'm using some blood for the blood god, and this is just red paint mixed with a gloss varnish, and I'm splattering this on to the base with a sponge and on some of the claws and faces. And with a brush, I'm very, very gently applying some of this to the glue that's dried. It can still be fragile. You can see it's got a little bit of elasticity to it, but it does look really good when it's finished. Wow, there you have it. Some really gross looking xenomorph inspired aliens ready to destroy the crew of the Nemesis. I love this board game. It's really fun, and these models are great. I backed this many years ago, and so I've got like a ton of models, a ton of plastic. So if this is something that you want to see more of, if this is something that you want to see me handle more of the alien races, let me know down in the comments. The Queen model in this base set is really awesome, and that might need its own video. Once again, thank you to everybody that voted in my recent poll. That video is coming very soon. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and all the normal YouTube stuff. And if you're returning, thank you so much for your ongoing support. I love doing this, and I will see everybody next week.